What's going on, MJ traders and investors? It's Rod with POW Group. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Also home to the best MJ community. Today is Thursday, February 29th. Hope you're doing well as you can be. There was some breaking news out today, probably the biggest news story of the day, that BZAM obtained creditor protection. Stock was down to about a penny. Down over 80%, I think down 90% on the day today. So huge news, huge blow for Canadian MJ and BZAM investors. This is not what we want to see here in Canada, and this just adds to the list of companies that continue to go insolvent or bankrupt. Just think of your Fire and Flowers, your Ogens, and now recently added to the list is BZAM. So this is not what we want to see here in Canada. This is only going to encourage the federal government, though, to start to catch up with the industry and support the industry. We know that they already said that it's time for them to do that and that we could potentially see a spring release. And they created a forum as well to help with the industry challenges here in Canada after 5 years of legalized. But 5 years after legalization, and there's still tons of companies falling by the wayside, and 1,000 producers here in Canada. That's just not sustainable. We're not going to need that many producers, right, long term. And then even retailers like Fire and Flower, for example, struggling to keep afloat, and they actually filed for creditor protection. Think of Zenabis as well. There's been too many to name, but essentially this is not what we want to see. But this could potentially, like I said, motivate the federal government to start stepping up and supporting this industry. But as always, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. You should never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. And if you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or whenever I go live. Also, you can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So you may be thinking, who is BZAM? You may not have heard of the stock BZAM. I'll go over who this company is, and you'll probably recognize some of the companies that it merged with and some of the other assets that were liquidated. But essentially, for those of you that aren't familiar with creditor protection, this is just a way for them to restructure their business, their financial affairs, and maximize the value of their assets. So if you remember, think of like Zenabis, whenever SNDL had a stalking horse bid. So essentially, it's just a way for it to go to courts through a court, appointed and approved process, and basically make creditors whole, and then maximize the value of those assets, right? So at the moment, BZAM pretty much, shocking the whole Canadian landscape here. I didn't see this coming this quickly. Personally, I did have a little bit of a position in BZAM. It would have been probably 3 or 4 months ago now, or maybe more. And I had a very, very small position. It was less than 1% of my entire MJ portfolio. But I did sell that position. I just, I did a couple of reviews on their wild gummies as well. And I know a lot of people on the channel have been invested in BZAM. So I definitely do feel for people. And this kind of goes to show that why we need to be diversified and why we really need to do the research and our homework into these companies, right? It's not, we never want to see companies go under, but whether it be creditor protection or, whether it be bankruptcy filings. This is definitely not what we want to see. And like I said, I think this is really going to light a fire under the federal government to really start to support this industry. But today, BZAM announced that its Canadian subsidiary, BZAM Group, have been granted the order from Ontario Superior Court of Justice under the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act, CCAA, in order to restructure their business and financial affairs. The initial order extends certain protections to, among others, BZAM's foreign subsidiaries, and due to, among other things, margin pressures caused by significant competition and fragmentation of the MJ industry and financial underperformance and pressures resulting from obligations owing to creditors, the BZAM Group has been unable to generate positive cash flows and has incurred cumulative losses. After careful consideration of all available alternatives, the board of directors of each member of the BZAM Group determined that it was in the best interest of the BZAM Group and its stakeholders to seek creditor protection under CCAA. So again, not what we want to see. Brutal news, but this definitely explains why Canadian MJ has been weak comparatively, as well as as it relates to US MJ. We know comparatively US MJ has been leaps and bounds ahead. Bennett Jones LLP is acting as counsel to BZAM Group in its CCAA proceedings. And then they did have a board member that resigned as well. But anyways, that's pretty much the gist of it. So I wanted to come on and let everybody know. Like I said, I mentioned this to Power Group private members as well, and not very many people even knew who BZAM was. A lot of people never even heard of them. But look at their stock today. Finished the day down 78.95%. So this is brutal. Just from the high of the day. Well, that's on the monthly time frame, but it would have been the high of the day today. We'll use the high of yesterday actually. So from the high of yesterday to the low here was down 91% just in one day. So again, heart goes out to those that were impacted by this. Like I said, I did get out of this position. It's not that I thought they were going to go insolvent or bankrupt or anything like that in the near future. I thought that there was probably a good chance of it happening because I just didn't see a differentiated business here, and the whole organic component. I tried a couple other products. I wasn't that sold, and yeah, they were accumulating losses, and there just wasn't a lot of brands. There wasn't a lot of assets there, and it was just a ticking time bomb. But if you remember the Green Organic Dutchman, they actually completed this strategic merger with BZAM. So that's a name that pretty much everybody has probably heard of at one point or another, is the Green Organic Dutchman. And if you remember Cannara Biotech, who I'm a shareholder of and very bullish on, they completed the acquisition of TGOD's state-of-the-art cultivation and manufacturing facility in Valleyfield, Quebec. And they got it for basically pennies on the dollar when the Green Organic Dutchman spent millions and millions of dollars to manufacture or to create that, right? So like I said, not great for Canadian MJ, but definitely explains why we've been seeing the weakness in Canadian MJ as well. And like I said, Fire and Flower filed for CCAA protection, and that was a company, a retail, not a producer, that was a retailer, and a lot of people were shocked at that as well, right? So if it's hard to say how many more CCAA filings, how many bankruptcy filings we're going to see from here, because there's still, in my opinion, much needed consolidation in the space, and we could still see more companies, more mergers and acquisitions, right? More M&A. We could still see more companies fall by the wayside. If we just take a look at the Canadian MJ now, on my watch list, we got your Aurora, which is more medical. We've got Canopy, right, which is more ancillary. They have their stores in Bickle, and then they're focusing really on becoming an MSO with the acquisition of acreage. They have also, I think, a 17% stake in TerraSend, and then they're working on Canopy USA, right? So they're focusing more on the US and becoming more of a MSO, multi-state operator, and that's what they're looking to capitalize on in the future, right? The biggest market in the world. We got Cron. Cron has the boatload of cash and investment from Altria Group. So, we'll see if Big Tobacco starts to step in there, or if they merge. I think they could potentially merge with another company. There was talks that Curaleaf might even potentially acquire them. Decibel, that's a company that I sold my stock in as well. Just, again, their financials are much better than BZAM, but I'm just not seeing enough value there. And I think there's much better alternatives, right? Think of your Tilrays, your High Tides. So High Tide obviously being the biggest non-franchise retailer, and they're just focused on MJ retail. You got your Organograms, which is 100% MJ play. Same thing with Cannara. They're a profitable small LP and licensed producer here in Canada, but they're focusing on just kind of crawl, walk, run, and they're profitable, and then they're scaling, right? So they have a little bit of a different approach, whereas Organogram still has yet to be profitable, but they have British American Tobacco investment of $124 million. You got your SNDL, which is liquor and MJ retail, and they also are a producer as well. So they've got, their hand in everything. VFF, I'm not 100% sure is going to stay around either, because I just don't think they have enough differentiated business. Maybe Village Farms sells their Pure Sun Farms, part of their business to somebody else in the Canadian landscape. I think that could very well happen. And then you got Tilray, which is into like craft beer manufacturing, and then, their hemp business, their international medical business as well, their distribution business, their hemp business, their MJ business. So they have their beverage brands as well. So there's a lot of differentiated companies here in Canada, but those that fail to do so, that have a competitive advantage or have a decent moat, then they're going to just lose. They're just going to fall by the wayside, and people are going to lose interest, and they're just not going to stand the test of time, right? So this is what's going to separate the men and the women from the boys and the girls. And as I mentioned, this probably isn't going to be the last CCAA filing or bankruptcy filing that we see here in Canada. But the companies that weather the storm and come out ahead are going to reap the rewards and benefit greatly, right? So just remember the .com days, that pets.com, right? They didn't stand the test of time, but then later the real winners emerged, like your Googles, your Apples, your Microsofts, your Amazons, right? So anyways, brutal news, but I think better times are ahead. But going to end it there, let me know what you think of this news. If it caught you off guard, it's Rob with PAL Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth, and we'll see you again on the next video.